Thank you for playing with your organ for us, Ray Darnell, and welcome to episode 5 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, where we talk about the best Australian comedy show from the 90s ever made, The Late Show, and other D-Generation comedy tidbits. My name is Matt, and joining this podcast today is, in alphabetical order, Alison, Daniel, Kim, Prue, and Tony.
Hello. Hi.
How are we all?
Yeah, pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. And welcome back, Tony, for the second time.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Hooray. All right, and this episode we'll be talking about Season 1, Episode 5 of The Late Show, which is fantastic. We've lasted the 5th episode. Hooray! And thank you, everyone, for downloading and listening. If it wasn't for you downloading the show, we probably still would have kept going anyway, because we're enjoying every single second of this. So thank you for those 10 people. All right, so we might as well go around the grounds. And we've got some feedback, right? But this is a little bit of different feedback. This is more or less, you know, and we all do this, when we quote the show in everyday life, right? So you could, you know, everyone goes, oh, you know, how much does that cost? Oh, $50, $50, you know, just as an example. Or, so.
Brilliant.
Yes, exactly. And some other things that could be deemed offensive these days, and everyone just looks at you going, what? And you go, oh, don't worry about it. Give up. Now, this one, there was a really cool reference on a radio station, Double J, by Zan Rowe, and thanks to Shannon Gill for pointing this out. Have a listen to this.
No holds barred with Idols there, and I almost wanted to say no, beg your pardons. Very, very much taking you back to the D-Generation. Grounds there from Idols. Ultra Mono is the record that we're featuring.
There you go.
I know their demographic.
Yeah. I love the way Triple J just keeps aging with us. Like, it's not staying the same.
Hello to Zan, who's a big D-Gen fan. And, keeping the dream alive, no holds barred, no beg your pardons. And other than that, so if you ever hear any references to The Late Show or D-Generation stuff in everyday life or on TV or on radio or wherever, feel free to send it through. Tweet us at TLS Champagne or email champagnelateshow@gmail.com and send the audio through, or I'll do my best to try and track it down, and so we can all get a good laugh out of it.
It'll be interesting if we're able to work out what the reference is into as well. This might be an opportunity to try and stump us.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Even if you have a community radio show who makes a lot of references, that will do as well. Anything at all, just to give us a good damn laugh, because we need that today. So, yeah. And another thing, which is a little bit of a downer, the recent passing of Eddie Van Halen from the band Van Halen. And The Late Show did a nice little Van Halen reference back in 1993, Season 2, Episode 1. But by the time we get around to that in our podcast, the one thing that we all thought of was Sid Halen doing Van Halen after Mick stuffed up his musical guest. So here's a bit of a flashback. Great memories, that's for sure. So, jump into it.
Probably just going into what was up against The Late Show Episode 5 on that Saturday night.
Oh, yes, that will be Season 1, Episode 5, broadcast on Saturday, August 15, 1992. And the guide, please. Yep.
On Channel 7, there was the movie Down and Out in Beverly Hills from 1986, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Bette Midler. Then on Channel 9, Hey Hey It's Saturday had quite a lot of guests. The Angels, Denny Hines and the Rockmelons, Elvis impersonator Max Pellicano, Paul Mercurio and Tony Lockett. We don't know whether Tony Lockett had his greyhound with him or not.
Yeah.
And that was followed by Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry in 1976 as the Enforcer. Then on Channel 10, we've got basketball, the Canberra Cannons versus North Melbourne Giants. I've got no idea what the final score was because I cannot find any results for NBL in 1992. Although there is a bit of a critique from Ross Warneke in the Saturday listings. He says NBL basketball has hardly set the TV ratings alight this year, and the failure of the Aussie Boomers to get a medal in Barcelona last week makes it unlikely that things will change. So obviously a very high rating there on Channel 10. SBS had an Italian drama from 1942 called Ossessione, Luciano Visconti's first movie. A drifter and an unfaithful wife plot to kill the woman's husband. So lots of quality there up against movies and sport. And finally, we've got on the ABC, the lead into The Late Show was Smith and Jones. And then after The Late Show was a movie from 1955 called Violent Saturday. So criminals move into a small town with the intention of robbing the bank. And yeah, directed by Richard Fleischer. Don't know who he is, but that just made anybody who wanted to watch Rage wait around till 12:30. And they were featuring in excess. Now, also speaking of the listings, Ross Warneke puts in his own little critiques into the listings on Saturday, and this one managed to make the special features of the DVD. He lists the Late Show as being a live Melbourne-produced comedy hour that is 55 minutes too long. What the hell, Warneke?
Yeah.
What the hell?
What is his deal?
Sounds like our podcast. It's 55 minutes too long.
So
that's our
all
fault,
for that.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I've got. If anybody else has anything.
Well, I was going to say in the TV guide that Andrew from televisionau.com sent through, thank you very much. Unfortunately, The Late Show did not make Panasonic Picks of the Day with the G code. So, there we go. Yeah,
That's a tragedy.
But Ivan Hutchinson does his Saturday movies on TV and gave The Enforcer 2 stars, which is above average. Yeah.
Pretty generous there from Ivan, I think.
Yeah, I think so. He did suggest Flying High, but that's on a different page and I can't really see. So, oh well. Well, at least he's got some taste there. Wasn't it Tony Martin did idolise Ivan and was good friends with him too, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Can I just go back to the 5 minutes of The Late Show that Ross thinks isn't too long? And maybe we could speculate on what that is because, you know, having watched this episode, I'm thinking probably the only 5 minutes he might actually like is the Four Kinsmen performing Green Door. But, you know, other suggestions.
Well, there's some sizzle for you when we get up to that part of the podcast. So
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that Ross Warneke might have liked certainly the before credits sequence.
Yes, I would say that is correct.
Yep.
Probably
The Elle
enjoyed the
Macpherson.
end credits.
Well, speaking of the start of it with Elle, we have the opening of the episode, which is Jane Kennedy being Elle or playing Elle, because during the week it was Channel 9 screened Elle Macpherson in Bali special to promote the photo shoot of her calendar. It was all about her breasts.
I remember this. It was really, really heavily trailed for a long, long time. And, you know, considering it's basically a program about her shooting a calendar that you can go out and buy, it's slightly outrageous as a piece of television.
Yeah. In fact, I managed to track down a bit of the episode too. So if you want to hear Elle actually summarising the special, please bear with us. This goes for about 45 seconds.
I don't have to step out of myself when I'm on camera. I think that's probably one of the biggest differences between acting and modelling. In my case, I think it's just basically being in touch with what you're wearing and where you are, and I really don't make a scenario in my head. It's just I'm just there, and that's the way I deal with modelling too, because I don't like to feel like when I look at the camera, I don't think to myself I'm making love with the camera or I'm flirting with the camera, or I'm just me. And that's the way I deal with, you know, with sometimes being in very provocative clothing and very provocative situations. I don't have to, on top of it, make a scene in my head. Does that make sense?
Does it make sense?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It just makes sense now. It explains everything, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 7 different accents. I know that she was on those commercials and she always had, because she's such an international supermodel, she just takes on the accent of whichever country she's visiting. living the life of an international supermodel. But yes, you can't really make that up. It was, all makes sense.
I find it very hard to bag Elle Macpherson because she is responsible for the greatest fitness tape of all time. And I highly recommend you all look it up on YouTube. It's the most difficult program you'll ever put yourself through.
And then clear your browser a bit later as well after you look it up.
I was stunned at the attention to detail because the clip from the actual Elle special, as well as the parody on The Late Show, both had Tommy Emmanuel playing underneath it.
Yes, it did.
Oh, wow. How did you spot that?
I was pretty sure it was Tommy Emmanuel. I did have to Shazam it and found out it was a song called Initiation. If you want to listen to it online.
I can play the grab again. Here we go. Have a listen to the background.
I don't have to step out of myself when I'm on camera. I think that's probably one of the biggest differences between
Yep, that's definitely Initiation. Yep. And then, obviously, the follow-up for that was the Kokoda Legacy, hosted by Elle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, actually, was there something about, Vietnam or war generally? It's the Second World War, isn't it, Kokoda? Was there an anniversary of Kokoda, like a documentary that had happened in the sort of week preceding that, or?
Oh,
I reckon it must have been. It seems like it's really referencing the previous week's TV highlights.
Yeah.
And the ABC and Channel 9 and that they're always big fans of Kokoda, and always, any chance for a football player to walk the track, they'll make sure that they give a special out of it.
Yeah.
Well, the only other thing I'll mention is that this show aired on the previous Thursday at 8:30 on Channel 9, which just happens to be the time slot that was vacated by Sex.
Of course, with Sophie Lee.
Yep, that's the one.
Ended up being Mick's future girlfriend.
Very, very appropriate.
Oh, hang on. I've just Googled this, and it looks like the Kokoda Trail was sort of being used in World War II from around 1942. So there would have been a sort of 50th anniversary kind of programming, probably would have been, there probably was a documentary about the Kokoda Trail because it was the 50th anniversary of that time.
That would explain a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Well, with the opening titles and straight into the opening remarks with Mick and Tony, who promoting National Elle Macpherson Week. So it was a big hoopla with her calendar, which was being on sale as well at What's New. I do remember a commercial or two with that. And remember
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Well,
they were difficult to avoid, as I recall.
And because Elle was in Bali, Tony asked Mick, what would you experience in Bali? Because there was a big Bali thing going all around. So, and Mick pointed out there was the obvious alcohol poisoning, a leaky bottom.
And the T-shirts.
Yes, the crappy T-shirts, yeah. And the bullshit story from Tony, which was, getting a spider bite and it grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and then out came a Nissan X.
Yeah, Nissan X's.
Yeah.
Which I think they were very boxy little cars, weren't they?
I believe they were. Hold on.
They were hatchbacks, weren't they? I think.
Quick, everyone Google Nissan X.
No, it's an Exa, EXA.
Ah. See, that's how much I know about cars. Oh, yeah, it is. It's very boxy. Oh, God, yeah. Those shit boxes.
The point is that they weren't the size of tiny spiders.
No, they weren't coming out of people's cheeks. That's for sure. And Jace had been a bit of an arsehole because he appeared on Sale at a Century for the comedian special, wasn't it?
That was Red Face's penguin sketch.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, they did mention the Red Faces sketch. Yeah, you did, which was the penguins.
What it was there was a compilation of the best of Red Faces. And they did a section in that program about some of the people who'd gone on to become quite well-known celebrities. And Jason apparently had done this act which involved him basically dressing up as a penguin. But he'd done this on Red Faces in, I think, the 1980s. So before he was famous for being in the D-Gen and the Late Show. And so that was shown on this special.
Oh, penguins.
Yeah, and because of the penguin sketch being on that week, he suddenly became this showbiz asshole. And there's this whole about how he's got this amazing dressing room full of celebrities.
Then we see Peter Couchman.
Yeah, Peter Couchman.
Peter Couchman's one of those people who is like in my memory, but I cannot remember why. Like was he like the Tony Jones of the 90s? Was he just
He had his own TV show.
He had a program which was kind of like a prototype version of Q&A, and it was called Couchman, and they would basically have like a big audience in, and they would just sort of discuss like a topical issue.
That's right. It was like Q&A,
Yeah, it was a forum
In fact,
program.
the best and worst of Red Faces and Couchman were both on the same night, the Wednesday before the episode.
Well, that's when, Tony and Mick had gone to Jace's dressing room, and that's when they walk in, and one of the most famous lines from it. Oh, fine, I'll say it then. Let's run over Todd from Neighbours.
Yeah, good little callback to the very first episode too.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'd clearly gone to one of Melbourne's slightly fancier hotels to film that, but
Yes.
I couldn't. I've visited a bunch of those hotels to do interviews for work and stuff over the years, but they all have that same sort of generic golden polished sort of decor. So I was trying to figure out if it was there's a fancy one just near Parliament House that would have been quite new around that time, and it looked a lot like that, but I couldn't tell you for sure which one they'd gone to visit the presidential suite.
So what you're saying, when they left the studio door and they walked down the corridor, there was some magic of television?
Yeah. Trickery.
The camera sort of goes across the backs of Tony and Mick, and I think it's about there that's where the join is between ABC Studios and the presidential suite.
Well, get out the best bits of the Late Show DVD, and you can see it in glorious high standard definition, where they do that little bit of a zoom into, I believe, would have been Mick's back. Very clever. And then they go into the bedroom. There's good old celebrity stooge Philip Brady jumping on the bed.
Oh, I love
yelling,
Brady.
Shazam! Shazam! Jumps up and down on the bed, which I just love. I just love the sort of the gleeful, joyfulness of that. Like, he's a 10-year-old boy or something. It's great.
Does anyone know how old Philip Brady would have been at that point?
He looks about 50 odd, doesn't he?
I think he's 81 or so.
So
now,
that he would have been like 59,
from that.
58, 59.
Because I remember at the time thinking, oh, he's kind of old, and then I'm now approaching that age myself.
Yeah, so Philip Brady was born in 1939, which makes him currently 81 years old. So yeah, he would have been.
There we go. All that time
point.
listening to Remember When on 3AW has paid off.
Well, after that, we had News Desk with Tommy G, and so some of the stories that were recited during News Desk was that's in the future. George Bush hits back at the marriage infidelity story, which was it was alleged that he had been sleeping around, which
seems insane now. It's like George Bush is the least sexy president of America in 30 years. How is he sleeping around? What? Crazy story. Made my head spin.
Well, John Major slept around, so they're all at it clearly. Even the not very good looking ones.
What was in the water in the 90s?
I don't know.
I think you just had to be a politician. I mean, if we want to drag current events into it, you can just be a politician, and you can get on with anyone.
Yeah.
Is that a sly reference to Gladys Berejiklian at all?
It might be.
She's not getting on with anyone. That's a co-worker. That's standard practice across all Australian workplaces.
Yeah, but this was the thing about George Bush, because it was a sort of presidential aide that he was sleeping with, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yeah, and in fact...
No memory of this.
Yeah, and John Major's affair was with a cabinet minister. So, it was all sort of banging each other in the workplace.
But that's one of the things I find from revisiting these episodes. They're full of these big news stories that have completely vanished from history. There's just no recollection whatsoever of this story that clearly at the time they're like, oh, this is the big news story of the week. We've got to pounce on it. And then now it's like, George Bush slept around? What?
But it's like a previous episode when they had Gareth Evans, and next thing you know, fast forward a few years later, and then it turns out that the extramarital affair between him and Cheryl Kernow.
Yeah.
And obviously the Bill Clinton one. So that goes without saying.
I thought the bit of film they did with like this bum squeeze was really awkward too. Did you notice that? Spliced, and it's like, oh, hang on, blink and you miss it. It was odd.
Yeah.
There were some better ones in previous weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next story was the Sarajevo family being chosen as the guest family for the main event. And that was a very dated joke there because they showed footage of a devastated war-torn family. Bit tasteless, mainly because the main event was a tasteless game.
I think we need to play a game where we find out an episode where they don't have a joke about the main event.
I don't like those odds right now. So I could already think about two of them, and I know that's in future episodes. Another story was the authorities to prosecute after viewing the latest footage of Rex Hunt Fishing Australia, and they showed the footage of a whale being caught up in shark nets. Now, I'm guessing that happened in Melbourne or somewhere like that. So, it was just like a generic footage of something that happened in Australia.
I was just going to say, I think this was before sort of Rex Hunt's rise to fame as well. There was a stretch, he just had an obscure sort of Melbourne-only fishing show and was, an ex-footballer who was on the radio. And then for some reason, and I'm not sure exactly when in the 90s, he suddenly took off and became this big character and he was all over the place. And then he just faded away again.
You know what?
Yibbity-yibbita.
Yes, yibbity-yibbita.
This must have been when he was in London, Cambridge, and met the bloke from the Netherlands.
You know what?
Came up to me.
You know what I did discover today, actually, and I can't find it now, but I did find it earlier. Rex Hunt had a VHS release of a bunch of bloopers from his fishing show. So
I have a vague memory of that. And I do remember when like Rex Hunt would turn up on television. Obviously this was in Adelaide, that I was watching it. And it was around the time when again, Burke's Backyard was this kind of obscure Saturday morning kind of gardening program that your dad might watch. And then all of a sudden it's primetime viewing. And it was all part of the kind of the 90s enthusiasm for lifestyle programming. And Rex Hunt, I think, was just in the right place at the right time. They went, oh yeah, here's a show about fishing. We'll put that on in prime time all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Now, also, just because you've mentioned Rex Hunt and Adelaide and also bloopers, I should probably also mention, floating about on YouTube somewhere, there's video of Rex Hunt endorsing flavoured milk in Adelaide.
Farmers Union?
It was Dairy Vale, and their bunch of flavoured milks were called DV. And unfortunately, there's
oh dear.
Yeah, I know. Like DV these days stands for something a lot more serious. And yeah, basically the marketing material was Rex Hunt's drinking the milk and saying DV, okay?
Oh no.
So, that has not aged well. I'll try and unearth that, because there's it's a marketing video with bloopers and Rex trying to gee up that we're going to have a good year selling choppy milk.
Oh no!
I'm pretty sure that's still on YouTube. I'll find that for you and get that tweeted out.
Yeah, we'll bring it up in the next episode. So after the quick little news stories, you have the UN helps families get out of war-torn Bosnia on the buses. So the first bus had the sound of children singing or family singing, and the second bus is a bunch of Aussies pissed on the bus. Here we go, which reminded me of the Flying Dickheads out of the D-Generation Satanic Sketches?
Mm.
Well, it was the Flying Dickheads, wasn't it? And they were going, TNT, oi, and we want to wee. If you don't stop for us, we'll do it on the bus.
That's the one. There seemed to be a big thing with bus chants for some reason. Perhaps it was just the age I was at that time, but there was a lot of chanting on buses, I remember, in like the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah. Can't remember a single one of them now.
No.
I can remember a lot, but none of them are suitable for broadcast on a publicly accessed podcast. No, there was a lot of very unpleasant ones that used to be chanted on school buses and various kind of sports and stuff.
Well, you're more than welcome to say it and then straight after it say censor that, and then I'll work on that a bit later. Okay, so in regards to Bosnia, so France sending tanks, Belgium sending flags and England air cover, and the US is sending naval support, and Australia is supplying portaloos and a donut truck.
Yeah. I think that's a callback to Australia's contribution to the Gulf War when we sent 3 ships.
Oh, of course.
In what was basically a land war. So our contribution was always pretty pissy, as I recall.
Fantastic. And we have the Red Cross allowed into Bosnian concentration camps, and they did not find much evidence at all. And then they cut to a sketch of Tony showing the Red Cross to an empty room, describing it's a 5-star service, where it was a bit of a shambles. Points out blood on spilt, which is actually cordial, and they start singing the Cotties jingle. Dad. Yep.
What an Oscar-winning performance this was from Tony. I love this sketch. He's just really getting into it.
Yeah. I love the way he sort of malaprops everything and sort of turns phrases around, like lucky go happy and
translating Santo.
Ass over tit or tit over ass. I forget which one it was.
Yeah.
And then there was Santo playing a prisoner. And
he was in his element there. He just loves those dress up.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and then next part was the finance, and the Aussie dollar drops 2 cents, which today it's, that's whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not going to make comment on that, because like last time when I said I would kill for a high interest rate savings account, and I got reminded by one of our fans on Twitter that a high interest savings account would also mean a high interest mortgage as well. So I'm going completely away from
steering clear of all of that.
Yeah, from all of this financial business.
Well, in boring financial, it was quite close to when the Aussie dollar had been floated in the mid-'80s, wasn't it? So the idea of it going up and down by any sort of thing was still relatively new.
The only joke here is the stock market guys, really.
Well, did you see in the listing for the finance listing, when they were showing the foreign currency, they showed one of them being like an image showing seashells, a comb, and a condom packet that was worth more than the Australian dollar.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was a blink and miss it type thing.
Yeah.
And Australian dollar was listed as an IOU. And
one of those ones you have to freeze frame and have a look properly.
Yeah, because straight after that, they showed a little bit of a sketch with it where they cut to the financial sector office looking lazy. And they go, oh, quick, the news people are going to come. And so, we better look busy. Camera crew come, film, sell, buy. And then once the camera crew leave, sorry, I'm doing all these wavy arm things in front of the camera, and it's a bloody podcast. And so, and then they disappear. It's like, put the feet back up again. Now, according to the Truth newspaper, the Leyland brothers are in financial trouble, or were in financial trouble, due to the theme park.
I love how they have to preface that with "according to the Truth." It's sort of like if you had to say "according to New Idea" or "according to the Daily Mail" these days.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
It's a little qualifier to say, take that what you will.
Yeah.
They could have found a better news source for that.
It's funny though, this whole Leyland brothers thing, because in 1992 we still had quite a lot of respect for the Leyland brothers. Yes, they were funny looking, but they were, they were good.
Did we though? Really?
Yeah, everyone watched it. Everyone was into the Leyland brothers. And then later, was it only recently they did a big documentary? And remember, they don't even speak to each other anymore. It's really awful.
One's passed away.
Oh my God, there's a split in the Leylands.
Yeah, there's a really great documentary on it somewhere.
I believe they did something on Australian Story a while ago, and I think it was Mike. Which one passed away in 2009. Here we go.
Pretty sure I went to Leyland Brothers World back when it was first launched. I think it was only around a couple of years.
I did. I went to go and then I fell sick. It was a school excursion and I didn't get to go. However, I did drive past it numerous times because it was up in Newcastle or just past Newcastle. A big fiberglass piece of crap, and which was in the shape of Ayers Rock. And then it turned into a petrol station after they went bankrupt. And now it burnt down a couple of years ago.
So if you did go to Leyland Brothers World, what were the attractions you could see apart from the fiberglass Ayers Rock?
Bush camp. And there was wildlife.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty much a giant bush camp.
I can't imagine why that obviously brilliant offer to the public would have gone bankrupt. I just can't see wrong. It seems like a great business model.
Yeah, it was in the middle of nowhere. Like once you go to Newcastle and drive past it, all you're doing is going to Queensland after that, or Ballina. So
right.
Yeah, or it's that or Taree. And then you just keep driving. But because being based up in Queensland and I have family down in Sydney, it'll be so much bloody fun driving back and forth. And I always, no matter how full or empty my car was, I'd just go in and get petrol because it's like, hey, it's Leyland Brothers Ayers Rock. And I'm now going in, filling up and doing a steaming pole of number 2s in the corner. So that was one of the best things about the Rock Roadhouse. And it got to that point where it had been so much exposed in the sun. It went from the brown Ayers Rock to a really fluoro yellow color underneath. And when you
not surprising it burnt down then.
Oh yeah, it was a pile of crap, which was just amazing. I got a kick out of it. Mike Leyland passed away in 2009. They did have a bit of a breakup, and Mal ended up patching up things with Mike just before he passed away because he also had some dementia. You want to do this, that, and the other, and Mal's going, oh, hold on, we can't do that. And yeah, it just went a totally different direction. And part of the stress was also the theme park falling apart. So it was a bit of a tragic story towards the end. But if you look on YouTube, you'll find some stuff.
As a kid, I really enjoyed watching the Leyland Brothers adventures, and it's sad that it ended badly for them.
Yeah. You can find old episodes of Leyland Brothers on YouTube for free, legally.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend it, and don't read the comments. That's all I can say.
That's true for all of YouTube. Never read the comments.
Yeah, even on something as innocuous as the Leyland Brothers.
Yeah, so they cut to Rob and Santo playing Mel and Mike, saying they're in deep shit because, that's ended up being a running joke a bit further on down the track in the episode. George Bush alleged affair with a former aide. Cut to Bush and Barbara Bush and and some hornbag that he met at the White House, where the vision cuts to the back of everyone on the camera, so you can't really see who it was. George Bush also agreed to an interview, and so you cue to Rob as George Bush chatting to Tom, and George, quote Rob, admits that he met her once on Studs, and that's where all the Studs jokes start happening.
Yeah, and that really takes me back, doesn't it?
I love this because, I love the Studs reference because I remember Studs being on TV, not for very long. It didn't last very long, as I recall. But basically the concept was it was a dating show, and if the women liked the men, they would give them a little love heart, which they would stick with Velcro onto the leg of their trousers. And so by the end of the program... Yeah, by the end of the program, the man who had the most of these love hearts stuck on their trousers was the winner. I think that's what the concept was. So yeah, George Bush had obviously been on Studs because he had quite a few of the love hearts, I noticed.
Yes. So it's basically Perfect Match, but with
it was a kind of updated 90s version of Perfect Match.
It was a bit more M-rated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a few more entendres and some, like as you see in this particular example, the 3 things that he kissed me more powerfully than Air Force One. I was his first lady that night and his second. And then the president certainly had his finger on the button. So these are the 3 things. And you had to kind of guess who said that. And then they get the love heart if they get it right. So
my favourite part of this whole bit of Rob's impression was when Tommy G sort of says, okay, we've got to go now. And Rob goes, okay. The final little bit at the end. You go, okay.
I also like how in George Bush's office there's like a Mickey Mouse telephone.
I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Fill the set full of American things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a Mickey Mouse telephone, which of course any president has in the Oval Office.
Next story, Phil Toughnell bald. There's no joke. It's just they'd like to see Phil Toughnell getting bald. That's like the most simplest joke ever, and it's most effective one as well.
I was interested in this joke because I don't know whether Phil Toughnell had a particular reputation for being, I don't know, outspoken or annoying or anything. I don't know enough about cricket to know that and why just him being bowled out would be funny. But it's possibly worth noting that he won Britain's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2003.
Really?
And all of a sudden his career was revived because obviously he was too old to play cricket at that point. But because the general public seemed to love Phil Toughnell so much, he ended up having a weird kind of side career doing stand-up comedy for a bit of time.
Right.
So I don't know if on the cricket circuit, you know, in the 90s, he was considered to be a kind of, you know, funny prankster or whatever. But he later, for whatever reason, became a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I do like this no joke, which is I'm pretty sure this is quintessentially Tom Gleisner. Because you do see this joke crop up occasionally in Have You Been Paying Attention, where a bit of footage is played, but there's no question attached to it, you know? It's just because we like to see the bit of footage.
Yeah.
So it's a great little recurring gag from Tom throughout the years.
And the last story from the news desk is the four-wheel drive that had driven into Parliament House and police on hand to arrest the culprit. And they cut to the culprits who are, you guessed it,
Mark and Mal.
Yep, they're in deep shit again.
I love this cut back to them because you can really see the glory of Rob's low slung pants. Is he Mike or is he Mel? I don't know which one he is, but
it doesn't matter.
The costuming was just genius. Like, I know, Rob, what we'll do is we'll just put your pants a bit lower.
Can anyone remember the story about the actual guy who ran his four-wheel drive into Parliament House? Because I remember the story, but I can't remember why he did it. I think he was protesting about something, whatever he was protesting about, I cannot remember.
I don't know, but wasn't it this week somebody threw some paint at a PM's car or something? Like, I'm confused. There's so many Parliament PM car stuff.
Yeah, that was this week.
Yeah, here we go. August 13, 1992, a man drives vehicle into Parliament House. A 68-year-old part-time teacher had no explanation for driving through the front entrance of Parliament on Wednesday with a sawn-off shotgun in his four-wheel drive vehicle. Wow. Witness said the man signalled a left turn as he drove. He indicated as he drove up the gravel drive, stopped and then reversed to align his vehicle so he could drive between the two sets of pillars outside the doors. And frightened tourists, students and office workers scattered as the vehicle rammed through two sets of brass and glass double doors and into the crowded lobby. But no one was injured. So
thank goodness, or else our laughing at it would probably not be good.
Here we go.
See, the thing is, like, if that had happened 10 years later, it would have caused massive panic because, you know, because of everything changed. But back in the 90s, if people did something like that, people were sort of in proportion about the severity of it. It just seems to me like basically a slightly kind of nutbaggy sort of bloke just, you know, took a wrong turn and everyone just went, yeah, well, he didn't kill anyone, so that's fine. You know, that was the 90s, wasn't it? Things were a lot more relaxed back then.
Yeah, well, I have lived in Canberra, and I am just amazed at the fact that he indicated to drive into Parliament House. I swear, the place is full of roundabouts and people who do not indicate. Here we go. He said that he really told the magistrate that he had no explanation for his action or the presence of the shotgun. So,
right. Okay. So yeah, it's fine to drive your four-wheel drive into Parliament House whilst carrying a loaded gun, as long as you indicate on the way in.
Yep. I think he was going to Fishwicks for porn and fireworks, but he took the wrong turn there, that's for sure. So the next part is the shampoo commercial, which is the German Blitzkrieg. And that's my really shoddy German accent there. Neo-Nazis for your hair. Thank you.
Wunderbar. Wunderbar.
Yeah.
I found this commercial a bit weird because they're talking about like Scandinavia and the scent of the Scandinavian pines, but actually it's about Nazis who were German. So
it confused me too.
Yeah, as a World War II nerd, I got a bit confused by this, but anyway, we get the idea.
It's Norsk Fresh, it's Timotei, it's Blitzkrieg. What a raunchy episode this is for Jane. Like every teenage boy I knew in the 90s was deeply in love with Jane Kennedy, and looking at this episode, I'm kind of getting why.
Yeah, nudes up quite a lot during this.
He does nude up, and it's quite funny seeing Rob, Santo, and Tom there in their ubiquitous white skivvies.
And they're looking up. They're trying very hard to look in the
They look very Aryan in their white skivvies.
Yeah.
And they would have had to do that for at least, or try and do it for at least 30 seconds without cracking the hell up.
Oh, yeah.
So well done to all four involved, having to stand there in a tiny shower and have to do that.
Wearing skivvies. They were wearing skivvies as well, white skivvies. But it was a commercial made just to have a chance to show some tit. Next segment is Understanding Wogs with Santo. Now, I'm only saying Wogs because that was the name of the segment. Just
look, my dad's side of the family is Northern Italian, so I give you my blessing. You can use that word, at least around me.
Thank you. And
just for those listening, Daniel G has just done the kind of the crossing. So it was a genuine blessing there.
Thank you. And this one is one of the most famous sketches because they go around Uncle Alberto's house. And so the topic is about architecture, or as defined by the Italo-Australian Dictionary, "Hey, Mr. Builder, you do good job, I'll pay you cash."
Now that accent, not so much. Your Germans are right, but your Italian, it's getting a bit Asian, I think.
Okay, I'll just shut up. Feel free to discuss this segment because I'm staying out of it. I've said too much.
I know that Uncle Alberto's house was a bit of a landmark. A lot of people knew where it was in Melbourne and would do a sneaky drive-by.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's a unique sort of house. I remember houses of a similar type being built around Adelaide by Italians and Greeks and so forth who suddenly made enough money to build that kind of house. But getting to see inside these houses it feels like a real privilege and an entry into a very weird world that the audience absolutely seem to be killing themselves laughing at the various features of Uncle Alberto's house. So the lounge suite and the rotating light and the onyx table. It's onyx.
Yeah. It's graded higher than marble.
Graded higher than marble.
It's a set, complete.
Yeah,
complete.
And it's got balustrade. It's a balustrade made from a concrete. And
it was painted with a wood finish. This concrete
wood finish.
That was
That's
near
very
the stairs.
important.
I actually googled the guy that he said did the ceiling and the house, and it seems like it is actually a real guy. Has anyone found some information? Apparently, there was he passed away in 2011 or thereabouts.
Bummer. I was going to ask if he's still kicking.
Hopefully that means that his ceiling painting has gone up in value.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine there's a preservation order on that ceiling now, the National Trust, because it's a sort of Australian Michelangelo.
Yeah, as they tour the whole house, you also saw the cart that tells the story from the opera Wogs Can't Harness Race. But this part, which was cut from the DVD, or the best of, which shows, Santo goes to wrap up this segment, but his mic cuts out, so they hand him the wireless mic, and Santo goes, "Oh, by the way, Uncle Alberto is in the audience," and as he stands up to say hello, and then the English subtitles say hello as well, and Santo says, join him next week on Understanding Wogs for the topic Hysteria and Associated Mental Disorders, aka the arrival date at the Italia terminal.
Yeah. It was a shame there was those audio glitches, because I think the gag was that Uncle Alberto was in the audience in, Franco Cozzo style furniture, sitting in his typical wog chair. Do you want to know Franco Cozzo, by the way?
Yeah, I was wondering how long it was going to take until Franco was mentioned. I mean, I'm in Adelaide, and Franco was nowhere near here, and I know who he is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Grande
yeah.
Grande Grande.
Yeah. Iconic ad for you all to look up on YouTube. Franco Cozzo.
The foot is grey.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I was in Melbourne and I actually went out to Footscray Station to meet a friend, and you could see a big Franco Cozzo sign. And I was like, oh my God, it's Franco Cozzo.
Well, I don't think he still has the sign's definitely there, but I think he only has his Brunswick store now. There's still one. But yeah, because I always thought it was north of Melbourne and Footscray, but he went to Brunswick pretty early. I don't think he was in North Melbourne for too long.
What else? There was others as well, like speaking of iconic ad salesmen and stuff, because there's also Frank Walker from National Tiles. Hello! And up in Queensland, there's Stefan, who doesn't really have a catchphrase, but he's a well-known hairdresser, and he pretty much owns everything, including the Sky Needle up in Brisbane as well. So all these iconic people shows you that how well advertising works if you just get the right catchphrase or repetitiveness of your commercial of "What is grey?" and
or having the ugliest furniture in the world to sell. That might also get you.
And King Bruce has gone mad. Just to throw him in.
Yeah.
So.
And just for Adelaide residents, I'll just mention the name Bob Moran and not say anything more.
But the 80s and 90s really was a golden age of shonky furniture guys. So Melbourne had a whole range of them that they would pop up on advertising and so on. I mean, I'm not sure how national Stan Cash, the tin shed cowboy, was, but he was one of the ones out there for quite a while.
He does turn up in one of the later Commercial Crime Stoppers, I think, but apart from that, no idea.
He was like the first $2 shop guy before that was a thing.
Yeah, he was good with the bargains.
After Understanding Wogs is Countdown Classics with Jane and Tom. That's come back because it wasn't in last week. And the topic is how drugs affect performances. So they showed little clips of Stevie Wright. Well, that's obvious. Bon Scott from Akadaka as well. Yep. And Robin Gibb from the Bee Gees. So they showed the clip from originally from episode 1 where he was walking out of the building and stumbled on that stair. And then they showed an interview with the other Gibb brother. It was Morris. That's
Barry?
Well, it might have been Barry. But they were having a chat, and then you just see Robin's head just poking to the side of the camera. It's like, hello.
This is such a great Countdown Classics, don't you think?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way Jade and Tom are reading their scripts from their clipboards. It's like they obviously did so much filming on location and stuff that week that they ran out of time to actually learn the script, or maybe the script was just written like hours before or something.
Well, that's where they mentioned, like, other than Vicky D, well, they were blaming Vicky D being on drugs because of what she was wearing on her performance. It was Tom who says, oh, is it my line? So, yeah, obviously they were just ad-libbing as they went, or just making up the script as they went. So someone who didn't drink in moderation, Joe Cocker, and as he's saying, he had the mic feedback. Now, I'm not sure if that was them adding the mic feedback to it or not, so I'd love to find the original footage.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it made a great little audio joke, that's for sure.
And of course, it wouldn't be Countdown Classics if we didn't have footage of Molly from that 100th show. That seems to have just come by again and again and again.
Yeah, they did that in the first episode.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it might also speak to the fact that at the time there wasn't that much footage of Countdown in existence. Because I don't think it was until maybe the mid-90s that more surfaced.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly it was the late 90s that started to show up on Rage.
One of my favourite lines from this is when Tom says he's drunk freely from the rock and roll flagon.
Yeah, I love that line.
Yes. Craig Tigwell from Taringa up in Queensland requested the Iggy Pop Molly Meldrum interview, which everyone knows. Iconic. How are you, dollface?
Brilliant.
He's just like a spring that you just can't keep still. An elastic ball.
Will you concentrate?
It is such an iconic piece of footage, and thankfully it's also up officially on YouTube if you want to have a look at it.
I remember, though, having kind of mixed feelings about Countdown Classics a bit, because they would always play bits of music that I was really into at the time. It's a little bit like my kids now are totally into 90s music. I was totally into 70s music. So when Iggy Pop comes out singing Chairman of the Board, I'm thinking, this is the greatest thing of all time. I love this. I don't give a shit if he's off his face.
Yeah. One generation craves Countdown, the other generation craves recovery repeats.
Exactly.
After Countdown Classics is...
Yay!
Yeah.
Just waiting for
5
that.
weeks, but we got there.
Yes. So that was a trigger for the olden days. Episode 5, Incident at Front Bottoms, with Pseudo Echo Funky Town playing in the background.
Yeah. We're trying to teach our cockatiel to sing that.
Ah.
So every few minutes my partner's going. He's not having any of it.
I just love the way that, you know, having that music there where it's obviously set in the 1850s and there's all these people in 1850s outfits. And you know, I love the way they just don't care what the time period is, and they'll throw in references to like stuff from the 70s, like the Little River Band and Brian Mannix. You know, it's a costume drama. So I just love the fact that they don't care.
There were some great lines in that first part where they were in the whatever it was, the incident at Front Bottoms.
Yeah.
Front Bottoms disco.
Yeah. With the guy going, oh, wasn't that guy in Rush? Oh, no, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. But he was in Play School before.
And then when he's about to leave, he goes, I'll be back for that leg over.
Yeah. Now, I noticed there was a joke cut out from the olden days full version that we all know, like the compilation. And
The one which is available right now on DVD and digital.
Yes, indeed, yeah. The joke cut out right after the Colonial Theme Nights reference, and this is what I will quote here. It was only 2 lines, because they're saying, it's cut out after Colonial Theme Nights. The woman says, oh, and which nights are they? And Maguire goes, oh, every bloody night, unfortunately. So those 2 lines were removed. So
Why? That doesn't make any sense.
I believe it was in regards to the recurring theme nights that were happening at Front Bottoms, and because the Colonial Theme Nights are so repetitive, when you watch it again, it will make sense in the context of as you play it, but saying it out loud now doesn't make sense.
Sort of like it was a joke that was repeated a bit later on. Is that what you mean? So it was a bit redundant?
Well, it was like another exit out of a joke. So you know how you can say a joke or one-liner thing and then you can add on to it? Then I'd say that Tony may have gotten rid of that because it could have just ended
unnecessary.
Yeah, it was an unnecessary add-on joke, yeah. After that, you go to the guy in the tent at the bar, and he wanted to pay for his grog with a napkin full of kitty litter.
Yeah, it's the way that Santo says it. Look what I've got, a napkin full of kitty litter.
Ooh.
He says that. And also, do you notice that they call the waitress barge ass, which is a foretelling of our glorious future.
And the guy who they're taking the piss out of in the ridiculous jacket, like that jacket is ridiculous for a period costume drama. Like he looks like he's wearing a 1960s tweed sports coat. It's the worst jacket of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy getting speared was pretty good.
I'm so drunk that I wouldn't know if someone chucked a spear through me.
Yeah.
Ding.
The thing that got me with that is the guy gets speared, and just the footage, he falls over dead, and his 2 mates just kind of wander off. I don't know how that would have worked in a drama in any way. They just kind of leave.
Yeah, in the original context, yeah, that would be interesting. Hurry up, ABC, release Rush. Even if it's just like a best bits, either way, just get it out there because we do want to see that. The next segment being Couch Mode with Tony and Mick, and then they start referring to Elle Macpherson calendar again. You know, this one.
I don't have to step out of myself.
Anyway, I won't play the rest of that.
No,
I think you could just drop that sentence. I just want to get out of myself just randomly throughout the episode.
Done. Stay tuned. So, and this gives Mick the opportunity to show his 1993 Mick calendar.
This was really interesting, I thought, because was this the first time that they really played up Mick as the beer-swilling slob kind of TAB dwelling kind of comedy character?
Maybe, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Early incarnation of, because there were sort of hints of it in previous, like, sketches, but yeah, I think you're right, Tony.
Because it's sort of, I mean, you're so used to it now. It's been, 30 years of Mick Malloy as, Australia's favourite drunk. But, yeah, it's just sort of seeing it for the first time or really early on, they really had it sort of sorted out that Mick's hobbies were hanging around the TAB Winnie Blues, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It was amusing, Mick sort of dropping the old snag reference. Like, I hadn't heard that reference for 28 years.
Yeah, it's very 90s. He actually said it was the sensitive new age. He didn't actually say guy, did he? He said gentleman. Man, that's right.
Nam.
Yeah.
Well, we had January with Mick with an open shirt in front of the fountain. Sexy as.
That is the National Gallery of Victoria's fountain. If you go to the Gallery of Fountains outside, I know this.
A very sexy locale.
Oh, yeah.
February had Mick having a bet at the TAB. March had Mick going for a roo shoot.
Except there weren't any roos, and they had to shoot horses and a platypus.
Oh.
Aww.
And then Tony gets to feed Mick's next line with that lovely feeder line. But what have you got in store for the ladies come April?
Yeah.
I love how Tony leads into those different months. Oh, what have you got? June. And April was getting a breath test, and there's a bottle of VB right next to him as well, which is quite amusing. And May was reflective Mick, who was lighting a fart. And June, can't show you June because we're a national TV show, and that photo's been banned in 3 states.
AKA, they've run out of ideas anyway. 5 was enough.
But there was a subtle reference to a gerbil in there.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yep. Tony goes, something about gerbil.
And they never actually released this calendar because I reckon by the time, the end of the year came around, probably people would have bought Mick 93 because there were so many to show.
For sure.
And the calendar is out at ABC shops.
It wasn't, alas.
It was out at What's New, sitting next to the Elle calendar.
I don't have to step out of myself.
He also says that the calendar's just perfect for Mother's Day, which I think is a great line too.
So the next bit is a story sketch, which is all about Vietnam, the aftermath, and it starred the producer Mark Gibson, and it's all about men telling pissweak stories about their experience with Vietnam.
It's kind of weird. It was weird watching it now because I remember in the 80s and 90s, Vietnam was a very ripe topic for comedy. There was a lot of jokes about vets having flashbacks and so on and so forth, which I'm pretty sure you wouldn't try to do now.
Oh, no. This is very much like of a time when, you were allowed to sort of take the piss out of war veterans. And, basically in the last 20 years, it's completely flipped, because basically in the 80s and 90s, the only people who ever really went to Anzac Day were sort of people who had a connection to like the war, and the idea of ordinary people with no war heritage at all going was just a weird thing to do. But John Howard completely changed that.
Yes, and there was sort of as well, I mean, I think the idea was Vietnam was in the past, didn't affect that many people. Vets were crazy old guys anyway sort of thing. Whereas now there's sort of this, even though the wars that we've been in since then have been smaller, there's much more reverence for the people who fought in them.
Yeah.
But the joke with this is that they're kind of not struggling with PTSD at all. Like, well, apart from the performance from Mark Gibson, which I was wondering who that was because I didn't.
I should put in here, it's not actually Mark Gibson, I should say.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it's David Campbell, who, he's listed in the sketch as Private David Campbell, but David Cameron, I should say, rather. David Cameron as Private David Campbell. Yeah, David Cameron is best known for Mad Max.
Yeah, right.
He was the mechanic.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, because
Bruce Spence.
the guy who, quote, played Mark Gibson, unquote, because he appears in a future episode doing the Street Talk with Mick and Tony. Yeah. Well, it's that same person anyway, whoever that person is.
Well, he was really good. I mean, he was the one who seemed like he had a mental illness. So I thought the whole line, I hear voices when I answer the telephone, that was pretty funny.
He was a bit too good for the sketch, I thought.
He was, yeah.
You kind of needed the rest of the guys just being sort of broad and silly to kind of make that material work.
Because that's right, yeah, because the other guys were just sort of being really kind of, that just was silly jokes, weren't they? It's like, what are we doing here? We didn't even go to Vietnam, that kind of vibe.
And yeah, meanwhile, David Cameron's doing your proper acting.
Yeah, it was definitely great acting.
Yeah. Yeah, and his bits are less funny because he doesn't quite know how to deliver the gag, but he is very good at making it feel real. So it's a sort of, I like this sketch. You couldn't do this sketch now because, people are too reverent about war veterans, but I think it's a really, really good sketch for the 90s. But the only thing about it is the sort of slightly different tones in the performances, which means it doesn't quite work.
Yes, it's hard to figure out exactly what the joke is because you've got those different sort of tones in the performances. Is the joke these guys are, Vietnam vets or guys who weren't Vietnam vets, acting like they were, or people wondering why they're being asked about Vietnam? It's sort of a little hard to figure out what the point is, even if every joke is good.
Yeah. Like the last joke, could you imagine the soundtrack if war broke out today? Jason, Kylie, Ross. Like that's
Rick Astley.
If war broke out right now, to just be solid Ed Sheeran, I think, wouldn't it?
Oh, that would cause a war.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran, Pink, Selena Gomez, Amy Shark somewhere in there. The next segment being how to run your own video shop with Tony. And this was requested by Mr. Jeffrey Edelston of New South Wales. Yeah, so for everyone who, I won't even bother explaining who Jeffrey Edelston is, but yeah, as you were. And so Tony gave a couple of suggestions, such as you got to think of a pathetic name for a store, mainly a pun type name, such as Close Encounters of the VHS kind. Oh, now, yeah, we're in VHS territory here, so no DVDs or anything else like that. Posters for films that won't be around for a few months, such as, now this is 1992, you had Cape Fear, Basic Instinct, Batman Returns, and it usually was
all good films.
Yeah, back in the day wouldn't it be like about 9 months before or nearly a year before it goes from cinema to VHS?
Do you really want me to explain this in depth?
Please, go on.
This is my sole area of expertise. There's a range of windows. You have a theatrical window, which is the movies on in cinemas. The home distribution window used to go, and it would have gone when they did The Late Show, movies, then pay TV, then DVD or VHS back then regular free-to-air television. Those windows have moved around a lot, and there's a lot of drama about moving them even more today with streaming and movies bypassing cinemas. But yeah, back then it was about 6 months around 6 months from something being on at the cinemas before you could get it on VHS. If it was successful, if it was a crap movie, got kicked out of the cinemas early, you might see it sooner, but there was quite a wait.
I remember a couple of years ago, you remember the movie Australia with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman?
Do I?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I do remember, and this is when Blockbuster was still existing, that it was still in the cinema, or had just, I think, maybe finished about a week or two after the cinemas. And when I went to my local Blockbuster to rent out something, I think it was Repo Man or something like that, and they had advertising Australia about to come out on, for rent in like a week's time or whatever. I thought, wow, that window is so goddamn small. And
what happened with Australia and some of those other films? They stayed longer in cinemas. Like there's a point beyond which the timer starts ticking. So if your movie, like smaller movies now will sit in a cinema, sometimes the Nova in Melbourne perhaps will show Parasite for 9 months. They'll keep it on in a cinema just because people keep going. But that, after a certain point, that doesn't matter. It's coming out on home release, even if it's still going in cinemas. And you used to get a few times films they would stick around in cinemas, and then there'd be like a very short break between them leaving cinemas and coming out, just because they'd been on in cinemas so long.
Okay, that will explain a lot. And it's to capitalize on the whole, advertising to make it cheap instead of re-advertising it all over again, right?
Well, what happens is the home distribution places, which is now streaming, get a bit shirty because they want to have a separate experience, but the studios want to try and pack everything as close together as they can to maximize their advertising spend. Whereas if you movie 6 months later, you got to advertise it again. So they want to close that gap. Whereas the theaters want it as long as possible so they can keep showing the movie, making their money. And yeah, so there's a bunch of groups in conflict.
As an example, like current day, Bill and Ted. So overseas, it's available to stream pretty much online straight away. But in Australia, because we're somewhat lucky with what's going on with Corona crap, you could see it at the cinemas in certain areas. Now, someone such as myself wanted to watch it on streaming, but I can't because it's available in the cinema, but it's available on streaming straight away over there. How will that be the turnaround time for DVD release? Because I know in December it comes out on DVD.
Well, what would have happened in that case, because Bill and Ted Face the Music was out through Madman, who have their own DVD label. They release movies to cinemas and release them on DVD. They would have gone, we're going with cinema with this one and then DVD in 3 months. That's the traditional way. But the distributors overseas decided to go with putting it on streaming right away. That I don't think would have had any effect on the DVD release. The DVD release overseas would still be, if it came out on DVD at all, would still be the 3 months away. What they want to do at the moment, a lot of kerfuffle is about, is that the movie studios want to be able to put their movies straight onto streaming because cinemas are not open everywhere and there's money to be made on streaming.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Anyway, I could go on.
Yep. Sorry, I apologize for hijacking this segment. So,
anyway, the moral of the story is that wait. Yeah, I remember the wait. You go to the video store, they had the posters up for stuff that was in cinemas, and yeah, you had to wait.
I like the line, "Old blokes in raincoats in the beta section."
Yeah, the seedy beta section, yeah.
Well, that was the misdirect, wasn't it? Because those video stores always had the seedy section up the back that was the various mildly sexy videos. And you thought that was where he was going. Then he said, oh, no, it's the beta section.
Yeah.
I should probably mention at the moment that I spent probably about a year working in a DVD rental store.
Ooh.
In about, was it 2000 and early 2000s?
The golden
well, yeah, basically VHS had gone away and it was just DVDs. It was this store in Rundle Street in the city called Express DVD. And yeah, we did have a section which had a bit of sort of softcore movies. Obviously, yeah, considering we're not Canberra, we couldn't sell anything harder, but, you know, anything, anytime anybody asks, have you got any pornos? I'd go, yeah, it's over there. It's not that good.
Bikini shop. Go for your life. There's 17 condoms.
How many copies of Bikini Shop did you have in the store, Daniel?
I don't think it made it to DVD either, Tony.
No.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Tony and I were talking before we got on off air. We had a conversation about Bikini Shop, and as
we often do,
as you and I are just constantly talking about Bikini Shop. And the plot of Bikini Shop, as I remember it, is basically a bunch of young guys start up a shop that sells bikinis, but they only do this because they want to see women in the change rooms changing into the bikinis. So they install two-way mirrors so they can watch all these women trying on bikinis. And that's basically the plot of the film. I don't know if you have any.
I don't even know if they set up the shop. I thought they inherited the shop.
Yeah, maybe they came to be running a bikini shop anyway, is the plot. I can't remember why.
Stars are the legendary Bruce Greenwood. Yeah, there's one for his CV, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's available on DVD on demand.
Oh.
There we go. Somebody's got to go and better off for you.
Yeah, okay, delete history, done.
And yeah, that sort of thing. Setting up a business where you spy on women changing. I mean, that's a crime at any other time except for when the movie came out. Yeah.
Yeah. In the late 80s, there were a lot of films where the plot was basically young guys want to see women in the nude, so they come up with a way of seeing them in change rooms or whatever. And this is decades before Me Too. And, people just thought, oh, isn't this funny? These young guys are coming up with these crazy schemes to see nude women. And when you look back on it, you realize how incredibly creepy that is.
Well, I think at the time we were somewhat, as a young man when these films were being made, we were fairly aware that these were not quality projects. I always remember the best one was the one where the guy actually died. But the advantage of being a ghost was that he could now ghostly haunt women's changing rooms.
There should have been a whole section of the video shop of just movies where guys snoop on ladies in changing rooms.
There was. It was the comedy section.
Wow.
The comedy section, and as Tony points out in this sketch, the comedy section in the 90s, no one had made a funny movie in a decade and a half going by what most video stores had on their shelves.
I enjoyed the way Tony said, nobody leaves this sketch empty-handed, and he's giving all his castmates a snake.
A snake, yes. Celebrity stooge Philip Brady comes in to sign up to the store. They have to try and make it really hard to sign up, so you had to have a driver's license, a copy of your grandmother's birth certificate initialed by a JP, King George V mantelpiece from ancestral home in the Welsh Highlands. And Philip did ask, do you want teak or mahogany? And Tony said, I prefer ironbark.
Yeah, that was great. It was so elaborate. And then Philip Brady carries in a mantelpiece.
Yeah.
I think Tony was on fire on this episode.
Yeah.
I love the bit where he finally gets his laminated card and there's like the most enormous flame possible emerging.
Yeah.
And again, Aaron
goes, hot card.
Hot card. But the flame, of course, is the work of Aaron Beaucaire, who we will see a bit later in the program.
Yes.
And I love the way Tony signed off with "Send your Logie forms in now." Philip Brady performance.
One of the things that happened when I was working in the DVD rental shop, and I was reminded of this by my brother Ross. Hi, if you're listening. No relation to Ross Warnicki. He was very pissed off when we were saying bad things about Ross Warnicki, and we were saying, Ross said this, Ross said that, and he was going, say his surname. Anyhow, Ross reminded me of this because he was in the shop as well, browsing because we could get free rentals, obviously. We had a customer come into the shop to return a copy of Passion of the Christ. Complaining that it was all in a foreign language. It wasn't in English.
Oh, God.
Yes, exactly. Yes. The point is that it's all in ancient Aramaic.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have to break it to him that, no, that's the way that it's meant to be. We don't have an English version, unfortunately. And at this point, I also want to invoke the late, great Richard Marsland. There's no Easter eggs on that DVD of Passion of the Christ.
Nice.
Very good.
Very good. You deserve an applause for that, Daniel.
Richard can have it all. He definitely deserves it with that one.
Nice. All right, the next segment being Commercial Crime Stoppers with Mick and Santo, and they make an apology for saying sportsmen are the most annoying people on late night TV from last time. They were wrong. It was actually people pretending to be sportsmen, and cue the commercial of Ray Massaro Motors in Gippsland in AFL uniform. They're still operating too.
And the deals are so good, they're reportable.
Yes. Santo shows Mick his greatest all-time Aussie rules team while they were in discussion when that commercial was running, and they showed some of the players from Mazzaro Motors. Yeah, it was a visual joke.
The athletes that they are, that I'm amazed that those football jerseys could stay on them.
Oh. Yeah, they're quite large gentlemen, aren't they?
Yes. And also the thigh my favourite. Thigh blaster, Thunder Thighs.
That's the best.
Yes.
Beware, the following ad contains acid wash jeans, a Groucho Marx face, and the pissiest wolf whistle you've ever heard.
And all of those things are so true. It's like tick, tick, tick as you watch it.
Unfortunately, I don't have the audio grabber, Thunder Thighs, but I'll prepare that. Yes, Thunder Thighs.
Surely you could drop the grab into the podcast and post-production here.
Thunder Thighs.
Yes, there we go. Everyone applause.
Yay! And if we did have video, we would have a big wide screen.
Thunder Thighs.
The widest screen.
Yeah, nice. And then they also bring back Mr. Football Ted Whitten with a right of reply from last week as well.
Cool Rockin' Teddy.
Yeah.
But I think you forgot to mention that the greatest thing about the thigh blaster is the Far Eastern Flimsy.
Of course, yes, the Far Eastern Flimsy. And then they bring that back in later on in the show too.
That's why they have Thunder Thighs.
Yes.
They were using the Far Eastern Flimsy, which is...
Oh, no, not the Far Eastern Flimsy.
But I'm sure, Prue, you were also saying that at school.
Yes.
Quite frequently.
The next segment is... Now, this is where the teaser came in.
Green door, just what's going on in there?
And that is Toilet Break with the Thor Kingsman.
Yay!
Doing Green Door. Now, Tony refers to, the Thor Kingsman, which one was dating or married to Fairly Arrow, and he was saying that it might have been the mustachio one. Now,
the one that looks like Ian Turpie.
Yes. Okay, well, this is where I dove into the Thor Kingsman rabbit hole, and my YouTube suggestions are now dominated with Thor Kingsman stuff. So now, I really had to dive into the Fairly Arrow stuff too. And you know what? I'm based on the Gold Coast. Yeah, there we go. Ooh. And I am not far. I am down the motorway from the actual Town and Country motel where Fairly Arrow hid out. So, yeah, every time we drove past it, I go, yeah, that's Fairly Arrow theme park. So now we've got... Now, George Harvey was married to Fairly, and the moustache guy was Spencer Whiteley. So the people who actually starred in that clip were George Fay, who's unfortunately deceased, Peter Fay, Spencer, and Adrian Mahoney. Now, they were in the clip, but not the person who was married to Fairly.
So, I don't understand. Is this another clip from the Saturday show? Who were the Four Kingsmen when they were at home? Never heard of them.
It's certainly from something very pissy and ABC-like.
How would they get the rights to something that wasn't ABC? It must be ABC.
Now, the clip that they showed was actually from a Four Kingsmen special that was shown on the ABC. Because it also mashes in with...
There was a whole hour of this?
Oh.
Why? Who are they and why? This is insane.
Yeah, well, it also mashed in with the Peter Gunn theme, and there's a big song and dance routine as well. So the version that they showed was even longer, and it was from a 1979 ABC TV special, Just the Way We Are.
Oh, no.
And
okay, gee, I wonder what Billy Joel song they would have sung in that one. Yes.
They were just such blokes. I'm sorry. I know you're probably going to have to bleep that out, but good Lord. It was such a creepy experience. And then they're sort of creepily backing away through this green door. It was like, ugh.
well, there was 10 members out of the whole lifetime of it. So from 1962 all the way up to 2002.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, 10 Kingsmen.
3 of them have passed away. There's a website, thefourkingsmen.com. So if you want to check that
But
out.
like, I know I'm harping on about this, but I don't understand it. They've just mashed up 2 cover versions of 2 shitty songs, Peter Gunn theme and What's Behind the Green Door by Shakin' Stevens. It's like, who are they and why do we care? Like, what are they? Are they the Wiggles for middle-aged people in the 70s? I just don't understand who they are.
There used to be quite a big market for like oldies taking on popular songs, like older folk having current music interpreted for them. And then you sort of had these guys who would be doing these sort of weird mashups, and you were just left thinking, this is for older people?
Yeah.
I'm sure the DGen had the same feelings as we do now because of the Copula sketch, which we'll see later on.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the Four Kingsmen are sort of, they're one of a couple of groups I can think of that are sort of just mainly entertainers. They're probably only known around one area. The name Wickety Whack comes to mind.
Oh.
I know they're not around anymore since one of them passed away as well. I can't think of an Adelaide equivalent. Maybe Chunky Custard. Maybe they were like a party band.
Chunky Custard.
Chunky Custard.
Yeah, I think named from the product that was advertised in Australia. You're standing in, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
But it's sort of like these sort of party-based entertainers, and they've got a general act which obviously goes well on TV as well.
And the lucrative theatre restaurant circuit.
Yes.
Yeah. But there used to be this whole big circuit of like sort of cabaret clubs where you could go, where like sort of middle-aged people would go and they would sort of wine and dine, and then there would be a cabaret act, and you'd have acts like the Four Kinsmen would be on it. But what I love about this particular performance is, they're not just sort of performing Green Door and the Peter Gunn theme. They're also kind of nicking a load of choreography from ABBA, all that
Yeah.
The head turning at various points, and it's a really, really weird sort of piece conceptually, I suppose. I don't know where this is coming from, but I can also imagine this being quite popular with a very middle of the road kind of early Saturday night audience.
Well, I'm just grabbing something randomly from one of their performances. In 1988, they were the headlining act at Conrad Jupiter's Casino, now known as the Star.
There we go. Casinos.
Yep, and
it's always a casino.
Yep. So they were doing a production show called Stars, and the main Australian entertainers for the Miss World pageant, beamed worldwide live by satellite from Jupiter's Casino and hosted by Florence Henderson.
Wow.
Goodness.
There was also something from 1984 with Rolf Harris, but I will leave that one alone.
Yeah, let's skip that.
Yep. Yeah, they've had quite a distinct CV. So ranging from Graham Kennedy in Melbourne Tonight all the way up to their final tour in 2002, where they performed a sell-out final tour around Australia, and the gala farewell concert was held at the Star City Casino in August 2002.
There we go, casino
they
again.
meant nothing to me as a teenager in the 90s, and they mean nothing to me now in my mid-40s.
So the song Cop Killer didn't do it for you? The one that they claim they never released?
Oh, no, that's a winner. That's absolutely gold medal winner.
Everyone, you'll get that joke next podcast, trust me. Yep. So after the toilet break, all right, so the news desk update with further evidence, prisoners in... Oh, now we go back to war stuff and everything else. The prisoners in Serbian camp are subject to inhumane treatment, which they're forced to listen to.
Yeah, that was good.
just what's going on in there.
George Bush dismisses allegations he slept with his wife again, with the grabs sick, untrue, and alive of Barbara Bush saying that, which was, somewhat taken out of context. With that, there was Israeli archaeologists uncover evidence of the world's oldest Jewish joke, which they've cut to a bit of a group of men with a scroll saying 2 Jewish men walked into a bar, ... That was very visual. Yeah. No comment? All right, moving on.
No, sorry.
Now, this one's a bit awkward. The Sydney court heard that a 7-year-old boy, part of the, quote, Children of God sect, exposed to group coitus. Parents of the boy denies the story and claimed that he didn't know he was watching Chances.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Yeah,
Yes.
and then Tom just said, why do I feel like I'm hosting the Logies here because of the mixed reception or lack thereof?
Yeah, it was really awkward, yeah. And Chances, which, funny enough, was ended up being produced by Brendan Lunny, who is Governor Front Bottom.
Just also, speaking of Chances, because I had to pull this up because it got mentioned on the website TV Tonight as a Friday flashback. And you don't realise how bonkers the series actually was.
So to speak.
Oh.
Well, David Knox writes that the project had originally been a telemovie pilot that sat on the shelf for several years before being dusted off and sexed up with nudity. Jeremy Sims' bare buttocks became more widely recognised than the show itself. Eventually, Nine cut the show from 2 hours to 1 hour a week, trimming cast and moving to a late slot. Then he writes, the writers went all out incorporating Asian triads, ghosts, an angel on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, an Egyptian sun goddess, laser-wielding vampires, man-eating plants, and neo-Nazis hunting valuable Third Reich artifacts. Everything but the kitchen sink in this bloody thing.
Wow.
I reckon I'm going to watch it.
You see, it sounds good, but I remember watching some of it and yeah, it sounds good. And then you watch it and it's an Australian late night drama from the mid-90s and yeah, it's a good idea.
I did try and watch it at the time and it was just unwatchable. It was terrible.
Yeah, well, other than Jeremy Sims in it, you had Michael Caton in it as well and Kate Lambrook, who showed her Norgs.
Or is it Norks?
Norks, yes.
Yeah. And according to this, 126 episodes were produced by Beyond Productions. I'm surprised that it hasn't made its way onto one of the TV catch-up services, like how you can watch all of A Country Practice or Blue Heelers. Wouldn't it be something if you could watch all of Chances online?
Well, I actually owned at one stage until I sold them for a nice penny on eBay, Chances Volume 1 and 2 on DVD. And
oh god, it made it onto DVD.
But like it was a best of. So you had Volume 1 had episode 97 all the way to 104, and Volume 2 had episodes 116, 117, 121, and skipped all the way to 126. So yeah, just it's full of cheese.
Continuity was not its strong point.
No.
Yeah, just all the bits with the Egyptian sun god in it.
Yeah. So other than that, authorities in Queensland are cracking down on shops selling dodgy souvenirs, such as koala toys made in Korea, and cue a really dodgy koala. Won't say what it looked like.
Yes. Yeah, it's something to do with its eyes were not a certain shape. Yeah, very, very dumb joke.
But moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Yeah, let's move on.
US rapper Ice-T was in Australia with controversy about his single Cop Killer, Tony impersonating Ice-T on the phone. And yeah, that...
Was it Tony? I actually had a question mark around that. It sounded like Jason.
It could have been Jason. Sorry, it could have been Jason.
I thought it was Tony.
I couldn't work out who it was.
I couldn't figure it out. When they quote the lyrics for Cop Killer to, fake Ice-T, the lyrics are not the lyrics for the song at all. They've just made up a bunch of stuff, which stands out when you watch the next week's episode and they actually use the proper Cop Killer lyrics for the Four Kinsmen sketch.
Yeah. Doesn't Tom just read out, you're a cop killer, or something like that?
Yeah.
Let's all kill some cops right now.
Yeah.
The next part, police are baffled why someone crashed a four-wheel drive into Parliament House, and Tom thinks he knows why. Cut to Tom and doing shit scared Rob and Mick.
This episode to me, there's sort of quite a lot of callbacks to stuff that's either in the episode, it's sort of earlier in the episode or is in previous episodes. And it feels like, they're starting to build a kind of late show universe and get really comfortable with that and just sort of build and get these running jokes going. And so this to me felt like the first episode of the show where everything just seemed to snap into place. There's not many kind of, technical errors apart from the things with the microphones. Everyone feels like they're well rehearsed and comfortable with the studio, and it's just a sign of kind of growing confidence in the program, I think, is all these callbacks and references.
Yeah, and there's some interesting linking in this episode too, like Tommy G sort of linking to that shit scared bit from the end of the news desk, which is actually quite weird. Usually the news desk comes to an end and then you move on to the next bit.
Yeah, they're getting good at the transitions and making them smooth and a bit more interesting. Yeah.
The next part being a commercial, Wanker Roller, with Rob promoting mobile phones.
Isn't he, Rob? It is kind of like the part he was born to play, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what store they used, but they definitely used a Tandy Electronics store.
Now, also, did you notice somebody in the mob at the start saying to Rob's character, "You're a wanker"?
Yeah, that was all the rest of the cast, wasn't it?
Plus one, Alf Camilleri. Did you notice him on the left?
No.
Yes,
Alf Camilleri.
yes, I did spot him.
Oh.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
So this is when mobile phones, especially fold phones, were becoming the norm.
And mobile phones, I think, were still very much a yuppie phenomenon, and anyone who had one was deemed a bit of a wanker, as the whole sketch describes. Here at Wanker Roller, we make mobile phones to suit every budget, and I really liked the budget version, which was basically a phone booth.
Yeah, that was great. What an elaborate joke that was, with the phone booth on his back.
It shows how much mobile phones have come so far. Considering again, current events, they've announced yet another iPhone. Yeah. And they seem to have shed their wanker tag in some ways, I suppose. But I mean, in other ways, I mean, considering how shiny and premium and expensive they are nowadays.
Yeah. Yep. It's so funny that you were a wanker if you had a mobile phone back in the early 90s because you were some high-flying businessman or something. But now, like, I used to remember, it was just a year ago, you were a wanker if you were using FaceTime.
Oh, yes.
That wanker using a video call, and now here we all are.
You were a wanker if you had AirPods.
Oh yeah.
So that seems to have. I've got mine set like considering I use these for the sneaky listen to a podcast at work. These things are an absolute godsend.
Yeah.
I still like my connected earphones, which I've got now.
Yeah,
because I would just lose those.
I've got like about 4 or 5 pairs of those floating around home.
Yeah, I also like in the sketch there was the clip-on phone, and Rob putting it on, basically put it on his crotch as this kind of a, hey, I'm a man with this really great mobile phone. Basically modern day codpiece.
Basically, subtly saying what the mobile phone is compensating for. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember there was a kind of a thing in the mid-90s where people who were having a cup of coffee in Rundle Street in Adelaide, they would sit, at one of the outside tables, and if they had a mobile phone, they would put their mobile phone in the center of the table so anyone walking past could go, they've got a mobile phone, they must be cool, and this was a real to display your mobile phone because they were new and they were really expensive as well. They were like a status symbol.
Yes, well, this is where the next part, where they're going to go onto the couch with every staff member there, where Rob snaps pretty much. He reflects on people using mobile phones in restaurants, and he will snap next time anyone uses their phone. Then you cut to a student's audience member, Aaron Bouquet, with the mobile phone, and Rob just plain out shoots him.
Yeah, what a dangerous stunt that would have been, A gun, like a fake gun going off, but facing the audience.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yes.
I don't know. I can't imagine that happening today. Too much.
Yeah, health and safety.
Yeah.
Too much health and safety getting involved. Yeah.
Well, I love
it really felt like something they just did because Aaron Beaucaire said, "Oh yeah, I can do that." Like, yeah, just wouldn't it be cool to shoot someone in the studio?
Well, I love the fact that
Guys, I remember got shot several times on the Late Show live in the studio, but we'll get to that in future episodes.
yeah. Well, I love when he gets shot and then Santo walks on stage and just kicks
Kissed
body.
him off. Yeah, Aaron Beaucaire was a great actor, I think.
An overactor, yeah, fantastic.
Was he actually a stuntman? Was that his back?
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was like, if he wasn't a stuntman, he was a stunt technician. He was somebody who knew how to blow things up and fake squibs and all that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely a pro at that.
Yeah. So with Jason, Mick, Jane, Philip Brady, Michael Hirsch as well, Tom and Tony gather onto the couch and they go to watch Jace and Mick's slideshow to Eggworld. Which
Eggworld is a bit underwhelming, isn't it? It's nothing like the Ned Kelly world trip that they do
Glenn Rowan
to camera later on, yeah. But Eggworld was like, what?
I wondered if they sent somebody out there just to take a bunch of photos and then realised after this sketch that those sort of trips only worked if they went in person.
Yeah, maybe. It could have been anyone really going up.
They're not in the photos. You don't see them. You just see various bland Eggworld things.
Yeah.
I have to say, as someone who has been to Eggworld, it really.
Whoa, hang on.
Yeah, talk about burying the lead out.
Well, okay. I grew up in Adelaide, and my dad's family all lived on the Mornington Peninsula, so we would drive over there several times a year, and we went every possible route you could, including kind of via Geelong, which is an Eggworld, I believe, is kind of near Geelong or sort of in between the kind of Geelong-Melbourne stretch of road. And yeah, we went there one day because, it's a giant egg and you can see it from the road. Like you can see it from several kilometers away. It's just a giant egg and giant chickens. And really all it is it's just a big chicken farm. And they thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if we build this giant egg and we'll get the tourists in? But when you get there, it's basically just an egg farm with a sort of giant egg. And there's really not very much to do for the tourists. And you can see that from the photos. There's just like the swings and there's a wonky bin and a gift shop. And that's kind of it.
I can't believe that gift shop, though. It looks immense. Like, what? It looks like the Jurassic Park gift shop. They've got that much stuff. Eggworld, what are you doing?
But there's like in between like Adelaide and Melbourne, there are various things like that. Like there's a giant koala with a gift shop in it. There's like Cheese World, which is kind of near Warrnambool. And again, Cheese World is basically a dairy that makes cheese, and they've just sort of added a gift shop to it. So there's all these kind of pissy attractions, which, if you're doing a long drive, which goes for like sort of 7 hours, which is what Adelaide to Melbourne is if you drive it, then you want somewhere to stop off to have a cup of tea or just to go to the toilet or do something different. And so you just sort of find yourself stopping at a lot of roadhouses and pissy attractions like that.
I've got no idea who the person is that they flash up when they say they're going to show a picture of the Big E.
Oh, yeah.
Who is that person? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No idea. I wondered that too. It looks a little bit like a very young Paul Grabowski, but I'm not sure why.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought that's Paul Grabowski.
Ah, okay. Who was the band leader on Tonight Live with Steve
Vai?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I thought he looked a little bit sort of Marty Sheargold, but with hair. Personally, I wasn't quite sure. But anyway.
I think that's the thing that throws you, because of course Paul Grabowski does not have any hair now.
No.
Gotcha. The next segment being sideshow ads. Accent on Lunacy Driving School. Embarrassing hair pieces
with embarrassing misspelled as well.
Yep, with the Elton John photo with his toupee. Jeans and stuff all else, which are stockists of Amco tackle mashers. And thinking about absolutely nothing, you could be a co-host on Sale of the Century with a photo of Joe Bailey.
Oh.
That was such a mean joke, I thought.
Was, wasn't it?
That was harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it felt really mean.
Well, later on, there's the whole Save Joe Bailey rally, so all is forgiven later.
So after the quick slideshow of ads, you have Tom and Jane that break down and how to be noticed as an extra on TV, which they have Guy Pearce and Lucinda Coden from Neighbours performing a routine in a cafe in the middle of a shopping centre where extras do random and obvious things to get attention of the camera. Now, does anyone know what shopping centre this was, or is it too
I was
general?
wondering that. It looked like there's a couple of food courts in the Melbourne CBD that sort of look like that. But I kind of thought it might have been the Australia on Collins one, which has been
I don't know. I think it
redone.
might be that area in Como, where in South Yarra there's this little sort of...
Oh, maybe?
Yeah, because they've got those weird sweeping staircase things.
Yeah.
It's a very boring tidbit, I think, wherever it was.
Someone will know.
think Guy Pearce
Someone will
was
get in touch.
rad in this, wasn't he? Such a good sport to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it's a hotel foyer, and I wondered if maybe it was the same hotel where they shot Jason's changing room.
Oh.
It was a complete guess because it looks way more like a hotel foyer than a food court, but I will stand corrected if someone actually knows.
Well, the Como is a hotel, so that might be the vibe it's giving off.
So I noticed Jane was chewing gum throughout this segment, and I wonder if it was extra chewing gum.
Yes, and this was another one where Tom and Jane were reading scripts off their clipboard as well. They clearly didn't have enough time to learn any of this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Other than all the shenanigans that went on in the background for it, including the odd Logie shot and Santa being set on fire, straight after Graham and the Colonel, which Tony does the voiceover and the music, but no montage yet. Then you have straight up the thigh blaster joke again, which is
Far East and Flimsy.
Yeah, Far East and Flimsy. The lapel mics were playing up, so they had to go to the wireless mics for a bit.
Yep. Annie Marver comes in very quickly with the microphones.
Yep, and they talk about the Olympics. So sponsors behind the Australian Olympic team would be very happy. How prestigious it is to sponsor an injured athlete, really.
And was it two bronze medals out of 79 track and field?
Yeah.
It was a little bit mean.
Yeah.
Wasn't this the Olympics that we did so poorly they set up the Australian Sports Institute?
Possibly.
Yeah, there was one we did so badly at that they just kind of went, we've got to get our act in gear and set up an actual sports school and stuff. It's almost certainly wrong. I know nothing about sport.
When did Kellogg's Sustain come out?
And they referenced that archery thing again with the Mars bar. Like, I'm still flummoxed.
What's also a word.
It must have been a very prolific ad, the archery Mars bar. I have no memory of that.
But once their lapel mics got working again and Graham got lost saying, where were we? Oh, we were in deep shit. And the Colonel's going, hey, language.
Actually, Robert Santo coped really well with that, I think, because it was so distracting. Like, first of all, their mics didn't actually fail. Like, you could completely hear them fine. And then these hand mics are rushed in front of them. And then there's another one. And it was like completely...
I was going to say, I believe that they were working, but they had a bit of crackling to it. So they decided to turf it and then fine-tune it a bit later. So you had, Rexona back to winner, Lisa Onieki. Hooray! I don't know what this joke was, but they saying they switched from a spray to a roll-on.
It's because last episode she had a drink spike.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. And the Colonel wrote a poem. Graham, what's got you flummoxed? And Colonel...
I love how they can't get past that word flummoxed.
Yeah, and the Colonel's trying to find a rhyme with Monaghetti.
There's a line in this where they talk about sport and politics, and one of them says, sport and politics shouldn't mix like black and white people. And then that line quite rightly gets a whole bunch of boos.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Wow, yeah. I totally missed that. God, what a shocker. Yeah.
I mean, they're joking when they say that black and white people shouldn't mix together. That's the joke, is that they're saying that, but they don't mean it. But I like the fact that they just reinforce that fact by having the audience boo them.
Yeah. Back to, did you watch the L special? And the cool joke is the Colonel goes, what does the L stand for? So a lot of that just went straight over people's heads.
Yeah.
And it was a great doco, but we were spoilt by the Albie Mangles World Safari series.
Again, bringing it to those daggy 70s references.
Yeah. Albie Mangles, I think, was still making films in the early 90s. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. He was still around, I think.
I think so.
I know that Santa idolized Albie, that's for sure, because there's references to Albie further down the track.
Yeah.
And the closing remarks. Tom has Charlie on his lap before he became Charlie the Wonder Dog. And
he's the new script editor of the program, it turns out.
Yep.
I thought he said she, though, when he was referencing the dog. So then I was like, is it Charlie? But maybe he didn't.
Oh,
he said he.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Didn't Tom have 2 dogs around the Charlie era?
He did, yeah.
He had one was a female dog and the other one was Charlie. Yeah.
And then we'll go the other one.
The other one appears in the program at some point. So actually the dog that we saw may not have been Charlie because the dog is not named. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
They only have time for one worst album cover, which is the Ted Mowry Gang strutting. And they'll
wearing the tackle mashers.
Yes, the tackle mashers.
Yeah. What a bunch of dead set horn bags they all are.
Yes.
Not.
Yep. So with the closing credits, now did you get what the joke credit was?
Yes, Michael Hershey's Mr. Brady's stand-in.
And we also had Philip Brady and Peter Couchman, who were both right at the start. David Cameron, who was in the Vietnam piece. Lucinda Cowden and Guy Pearce, who were in the extras piece. Ted Whitten in Commercial Crime Stoppers. And he's listed as Zio Alberto. Zio is Italian for uncle. So, yeah, Uncle Alberto as himself.
And during the closing clips as well, it looks like they were showing clips from the rehearsal because they had a bald Graham.
Yeah, I saw that. Rob in the bald cap.
Yeah. To wrap up, they had the studio audience tickets with Philip Brady, plugging away. Good old Phil.
And what a pro he was.
Oh, he loved it. He absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Philip Brady turning up in multiple sketches in this program. He was really good.
Oh, we're at the end of another episode.
Yes, we
Quite
are.
a lot in it.
Yep, so that wraps up episode 5 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you stuck around for this long, really do appreciate it. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes, trust us. It's really, really interesting. You only hear the good bits, kind of like the best bits of the Late Show DVD. There we go.
Hey.
Yay! So, just want to say thank you very much, Alison, Daniel, Kim, Prue, Tony. Thank you for coming on to the show tonight to discuss random crap about this episode.
My pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
thanks.
Always a good time.
Yep. And if you want to give us any feedback or any other extra information that we missed out on or we were completely wrong with any of, we don't really do fact-checking. We just do a quick little search. Feel free to tweet us at TLS Champagne on Twitter or send us an email, champagnelateshow@gmail.com. All right, well, that ends episode 5 of this episode. So thank you very much for listening. And, as I said, reach out to us on all the socials and emails. And until next time, I don't know. I'm flummoxed right now. Yeah, I'm quite flummoxed with this ending, so thank you. Catch you next time.
Bye.
I don't have to step out of myself when I'm on camera. I think that's probably one of the biggest differences between acting and modelling.
Yep. Just want to squeeze that one in. Thank you. Have a good night and day, wherever you're listening. Thank you for listening to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, created by fans for the fans. For more information on this podcast, please visit champagnecomedy.com. Produced by Matt Fulton Productions, mattfulton.com.au.